Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the first Saturday show right here on ITV Networks. The first Saturday show for the year 2020. A new year has begun and alhamdulillah we look forward to new beginnings in every area of our lives with du'as and with the mercy and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thank you for joining me on the show today. We'll be talking to Zaid Ismail about the books he's written, one of them being 21 Days to Live, Embracing Me and the Ecosystem. Yunus Mita too will be joining us and talk to us about the wonders of the moringa plant. But first up, about on the show this morning, we're going to be talking spiritual rejuvenation, spiritual reawakening. It is the beginning of the Gregorian year, but no reason why we shouldn't reinvigorate ourselves spiritually. And on the show this morning, we have Muaz Kala from the Medina Institute, and he'll be telling us about an amazing new program being offered by the Institute. And the good thing is that it's happening over weekends for 10 months of the year. And it's one of those must-attend programs, whether you're a beginner, a revert to Islam, whether you have no knowledge of the deen, or whether you are way ahead of all of us. This truly is going to open up your mind, inshallah, and open up new horizons for you. Muaz, assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for having me.
Lovely to have you here, and you must be very excited about this program. And I should imagine it is true when I say it's a new beginning, whether you're a born Muslim, whether you're a new Muslim, whether you have vast Islamic knowledge or not. This is almost a must-have program. So tell us about it. When is it starting and what does it cover?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabi wa man wala. So we are, alhamdulillah, very excited to present the Medina Institute Foundational Islamic Studies course. This course is a course that was designed for people who don't have the time to take out a year of their life or a couple of years of their life to study Islamic studies. This course was designed for those who don't have the time, who are working, who are mothers, who are university students, school children even, and they want to get that Islamic knowledge, but in an academic way, in a non-sectarian way that's presented from Al-Quran and Sunnah with the understanding of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that is Sunni Islam. So it takes place one weekend every month. That's only one Saturday and one Sunday on the same weekend every month, which means that the course is running for 10 months. So that means that it will only be 20 days in the year. So you take out those 20 days of the year to come and learn your deen with world-class scholars and specialists in their field, and you learn the different subjects of Al-Islam. And in that academic way, it's not necessarily a madrasa style, not a dawah course, but rather a high-level academic class so that we can produce good Muslims, not to produce academics, not to produce imams, not to produce sheikhs, but we want to give back to the community and help people understand their religion so that they can practice more.
Alhamdulillah. Now, you also say that it's going to be running over 20 weekends throughout the year. Would that run during the month of Ramadan as well?
So it will be running for 20 days, 10 weekends over the year, but it will not be running through Ramadan. Okay. Alhamdulillah, we've scheduled it as such that, during Ramadan you get tired and your concentration levels are really not there. So we've left it out for the month of Ramadan.
You also say that you've designed this specifically for perhaps mothers, new reverts to the deen, alhamdulillah, people who felt that they've had a very basic understanding or basic knowledge or basic learning of the deen. Here is an opportunity, or those people who want to enhance the current knowledge they have. So here's an opportunity for them to familiarize themselves to different aspects of the deen, and you're going to break it down for me. rather than spending 2 or 3 years of their lives at an Islamic university, you're condensing this into 20 weekends of the year. Are you not going to lose some of the essence of the beauty of the deen by condensing it?
Okay, so that's a great question, alhamdulillah, and it is a true concern. So the way it works is within these 20 days in the year.
20 days,
yes,
rather.
It's going to be from 9 to 5, with obviously your breaks in between for concentration levels and for lunch. But our teachers, alhamdulillah, are specialists in their field. So what that means is when you study hadith to a level where you have proficiency, now it's one thing having that knowledge, but being able to pass that knowledge is a whole different game. And we understand that. So we want to give the best teachers in the best subjects and with the best timings possible. So this is how we've tried to design this course. And obviously we want to have a mix of spirituality in all of our subjects. We offer tazkiyah, spiritual purification, but in all of that we need to understand, how do we connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How do we connect to Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wa sallam through these subjects? If I'm learning hadith, how do I connect to Rasulullah? If I'm learning Quran, how do I connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So it's geared like that, and then as well as that, it's geared towards academics. How was the Quran compiled? What's the differences between the different ahadith? Why do some people say it's weak? Why do some people say it's authentic? And then when you're learning seerah, what different narrations of seerah are there? Because there's differences between seerah and hadith, right? Although they both history in a sense, they both narrations coming down to us. So what seerah do you take? What seerah don't you take? These types of things.
Someone who's new to the deen,
Right.
who's never had any exposure to Islam at all, how will they benefit from this course? Would you say it's almost an all-round condensed course for them to get almost like a bird's eye view of Islam?
I think that anyone coming into this course will most definitely benefit, all the way from a complete beginner up to your advanced student. And that's because of the text we've chosen. The texts are classical Arabic texts that have been translated into English. So all the classes are in English. So anyone who comes obviously will just have to have a proficiency in English or be able to understand English. And like that, they can benefit. So obviously the advanced student will benefit more than the beginner student in different ways. But we found that throughout this course, it's actually been tried and tested in different countries, and it's brand new here in South Africa. But when we've tried and tested, we've seen people from all different work spans, all different lives, all different cultures. What united them and what benefited them was, alhamdulillah, coming together on Islam. So complete beginners can most definitely have that benefit and an overall view of the deen in a objective way.
Alhamdulillah, what is the course then going to be covering?
So the course will be covering a few subjects. These are your foundational Islamic subjects. We'll be covering Aqidah, which is your Islamic belief system and your creed, and a little bit of how to logically prove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists and combating atheism and all of these things. Then we going to provide the hadith sciences. So the hadith sciences is not just reading a hadith, it's not just understanding the hadith, but it's looking at the chain of narration. It's trying to determine whether it's weak and authentic. Why is it weak? Why is it authentic? Why do certain scholars have different opinions about different people in the fields of hadith? How do you classify hadith? These types of things. That's the hadith sciences. Then we have the Quran sciences. Now, many of us are taught to memorize Al-Quran, but we don't learn about the Quran itself. So what we want to do is teach people tajweed, how to recite the Quran properly. Then we teach how was the Quran compiled. what different types of surahs are there, which ones were revealed in Mecca, which ones were revealed in Medina, what are the main themes of the Quran, what subject matter does it cover. Then we teach the different types of riwayah, which is the narration coming down from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the different modes of recitation, and these types of things, as well as the different types of tafsir you begin to learn.
I actually want to unpack that even more, because you've truly got me so interested in everything that you've just said now, alhamdulillah, and you express it so beautifully. So I'd just like you to break it down a little more, but let's go for an ad break first. The very young and knowledgeable Muaz Kala, alhamdulillah, it truly pleases me to see that this is the type of youth we have in our community, and undoubtedly his parents must be so proud of him, sitting here talking to me about these issues of the course that's being offered by the Medina Institute. And I'd like to see more such people coming forward in our community, alhamdulillah. More to come with Muaz a little later on, right after the ad break. Muaz Kala from the Medina Institute is in studio talking about this amazing 20-day program that's being offered by the university. It's being held over 10 months, one weekend a month, and it's going to be held in Erasmia in Pretoria, obviously, at one of the masjids there, but he'll give us all of those details, including the charge of attending this amazing course. I'm truly interested, wish I could be attending, because we as born Muslims tend to take our deen for granted, don't we? We think we know enough to kind of just skim through.
Sure.
And as you were unpacking, I've just realized there's just so much more to the deen than meets the eye. There's so much more enrichment that we can gain into our own lives by attending a course like this. For example, you spoke Aqidah, and I was blown away by what you said. But before I ask you to unpack all of this, just to give our viewers a better insight and understanding to everything that we're talking about, the different subject matters, I think there's still a few more, 2 or 3 more subjects that you're going to be covering, which we haven't mentioned yet.
Yes.
So let's talk Quran sciences. We as Muslims, very especially in South Africa, we have this yearning, alhamdulillah, I'm sure we know that there's rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that as well. That very especially in the month of Ramadan, we are almost like in a competition with family members to make X amount of Khatam al-Quran.
Sure.
But the understanding and the sciences, it is so deep and so meaningful. Share a little bit of that with us.
So the Quran sciences is truly a beautiful science, because you begin to understand that it's not about memorizing Al-Quran. And
yes, alhamdulillah, if you can,
of course,
that's a marvelous achievement.
Sure, of course it is. But there's always so much more afterwards, right? The Sahaba themselves, radiallahu anhum ajma'een, when they studied the Quran, it took them years and sometimes their entire life to memorize the Quran, because they understood it, they understood the tafsir of it, and then they put it into practice. So they understood the sciences of the Quran in essence. They lived through that age of the Quran. And we want to try and bring that. So when you learn about the Quran, you learn that actually there's different ways to recite Surah Fatiha, for example, and the different ways to recite the different surahs. Is it Ihdina as-Sirat al-Mustaqim or Ihdina az-Zirat al-Mustaqim? There's these different narrations. And what do these narrations mean for the meaning of the Quran? How does it open up new meanings for the Quran? Then you learn the different types of tafsir. So there's tafsir by narration. So what do I mean? Tafsir by narration takes the different hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam and applies it to certain ayat to open up that ayahs. Then it takes the narrations of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, the followers of the Sahaba, and it takes their narrations into account about how they understood the tafsir. That's just one form of tafsir. Then we get tafsir, what we call bil-ra'i, tafsir by opinion or by understanding. So that will give you the different types of understanding from different scholars based on, sometimes there'll be tafsir of fiqh. So the scholar will go and only commentate on the ayahs of fiqh. And he'll open that up because now he's a specialist in his field, so that's what he'll do for you. He'll open it up more than other scholars can. And then you get tafsir from a philosophical point of view, in the bounds of Islam, of course. But that scholar will open up the philosophical view and the aqidah view. How do you prove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists? And again, these things tie in to the different subjects.
Give us one example of that. Very especially if you're speaking to a non-Muslim or an atheist for that matter.
All right. So, of course, it's very complex, and you will cover these things. But to prove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, right? We find that within our typical system of growing up, we never learn if someone comes to you and he says, how do you know your God exists? And we find atheists doing this today. So how do Muslims combat this? So obviously, with taking into account how the universe came into existence, we know that scientists proved the Big Bang from however they proved it, right? And we have evidence from Al-Quran that tells us the universe is expanding. So we don't necessarily have in the Quran that the Big Bang was there, but the scientists as well say it's expanding. And what that means is that the first time science, in the last few years, if I'm not mistaken, the first time the scientists saw the stars, they see the light coming from the stars. And with that light coming, it takes years for that light to travel from the stars to us, right? And what they noticed with the certain waves, they can track how far away the light is. And for the first time, they've noticed that instead of the universe expanding, with one certain star, it was beginning to come closer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that the universe will expand and then contract all into one, right? So we understand there's a beginning of the universe. So the scientists say, okay, it was hydrogen that, that caused this Big Bang. And as one funny comedian put it, he's like, who put the spark there for that Big Bang, right? And who put the hydrogen there? So scientists will have to come to a stage. You find all of these atheist scientists and people in scientism that are trying to prove the non-existence of God, they come to a point where they just say, it was there. Who put it there? No one knows. So they're either calling the hydrogen everlasting, which is one of the qualities of God. So they either have to admit that the hydrogen was some form of God. Energy,
right?
Or that some form, life being, whether they call it God or not, but he had to be everlasting, and it had to be obligatory for him to exist, subhanahu wa ta'ala.
And it had to come from somewhere.
It has to.
Absolutely. Moving on then from the Quranic, and I've just asked for an example, but I know that it is that much more deeper,
sure, and
so much more to cover as far as Quran sciences are concerned. What else will you be covering?
So we'll be covering fiqh in both the Hanafi and Shafi'i madhabs. The reason for this is to promote tolerance. We find often that people who grow up, people who grow up only in the Hanafi way or only in the Shafi'i way, and we have both of those in South Africa, right? They say, oh, when they see someone praying differently, they say, oh, what's going on? How come he's not praying right? And people sometimes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them as their intentions are good, but people fear what they don't know sometimes. And they want to question. And in that questioning,
be judgmental and think we're right, you're wrong.
Of course. And with that comes that argumentation. Now we want to show that the Hanafi and Shafi'i madhabs are both valid opinions in Islam. So how do we show that? We go to the next subject, which is called legal theory, or in Arabic, usulul fiqh. Usulul fiqh is basically the foundations. Translated roughly, it's called foundations of fiqh. The fiqh books tell you, I should put my hands below my navel or above my navel. But it doesn't tell you how it got there. Now the usulul fiqh tells you, okay, this is the methodology that Imam al-Shafi'i used. This is the methodology Imam Abu Hanifa used. Now how did they get it from Quran and Sunnah? How did they go to Quran and Sunnah and extract that ruling? What was the methodology? And that's the
information you share with the learners.
Of course, that's one of the subjects. So it gives you the why. we often have this confusion, why should we follow the madhabs when we have Quran and Sunnah? Well, I think that anyone who has studied the entire Quran and Sunnah and can prove that is more than welcome, and has mastered Arabic is more than welcome to do their own deductions. But we don't have many of those at all in this world. So therefore the madhabs are simply following those scholars. They're guidance.
Yes.
And it's from Quran and Sunnah either way, and this shows you that. It's not some form of scholar that's giving his own source of law.
So, Muaz, let me ask you this question. You've unpacked a very interesting, you've explained how the courses are going to be unpacked and what it is that you're going to cover. And a lot of us as South Africans haven't even been exposed to a lot of what you've just shared with us now. And here's a wonderful opportunity to go and broaden our minds and learn more about the beautiful deen of Islam. What happens if I attend the course and there are few of the subjects that really speak to me? Let's perhaps look at Seerah, for example, or Aqidah, or Quran sciences, or Hadith, whatever it is that piques my interest. After the course is over and I would like to do more intense study in those subjects, do you have courses to follow up?
So currently we have not put anything in the pipeline yet. I would rather be completely honest. We do want to offer that. So what we do have available is our 1-year full-time and our 3-year full-time accredited BA degree in Cape Town, that people who want to further study could do that. We are looking into offering further public courses for those students who want to further their knowledge after the foundational program. And within the foundational program, we have designed it such that actually this is an interesting part. There's no exams, no assignments, and no homework. So that's a great...
It's all up to you.
Yeah.
And that's where we've got to leave it. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the interview. So much more to have asked you on the show. But it's been absolutely delightful talking to you. And you've just explained to us and just shown us that there's a whole world of learning still at our fingertips as Muslims, as an ummah. And the Medina Institute is offering it. What does the course, what's the cost of the course, and how does one enroll?
So the cost of the course is 4,000 Rand for the entire year. It's payable once off or in 4 installments. There is financial aid available for those who need it. And if you want to enroll, simply go to the Medina Institute website, medinainstitute.ac.za, or just simply Google Medina Institute Foundational Islamic Studies Program. And for anyone who wants to get in contact with us, we'll make the number available, inshallah.
Inshallah. When does the course start?
The course starts on the 25th of January, and it will run 25th and 26th for this month.
Jazakallah for being with us. Fascinating indeed. I hope and pray, inshallah, that the community comes out in droves and supports the cause, and in the process obviously broaden their learning and their understanding of our Mubarak Deen of Islam. Shukran so much for being with us.
Assalamu alaikum.
That was Muaz Kala talking to us about this amazing course being offered by the Medina Institute right here in Tshwane, in Erasmia. So if you want a deep understanding of this beautiful deen, here is the opportunity. Don't go away. In a few minutes, we'll be joined by Yunus Mita to talk about the wonder plant or the wonder tree called the moringa tree. Welcome back. My next guest is Yunus Mita. He's here to talk about the antidote to genetically modified foods. Now, I think this is the 3rd time he's on the show. And the reason we have him here is that it is the beginning of the new year. Lots of people are going to start chasing their good health. I mean, after the long holidays and overconsumption of all the wrong type of things, we want to get back into, relatively good state of mental and physical health. Yunus is here to talk about moringa and how this is the natural antidote to all the bad preservatives and everything that we're not meant to consume, which we're consuming, and the harm it's doing to our bodies. So let's talk to Yunus and let's talk about the wonder plant called moringa. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for having me here.
Lovely to have you here. I've talked to you over the years on different platforms and very fascinated about the way you have grown in terms of your journey and where you've taken the moringa plant. I must admit, the first time I spoke to you, I was rather skeptical. And the story started for you way, way, way back. We're just going to ask you to give a very brief history about your two sons who were suffering from some physical disability and illness or disease, and how you searched high and low for a cure for your children. Do you want to tell us that story, but very briefly, and then we'll go on to the wonder plant,
The
moringa.
tree. Absolutely. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with two amazing boys, all 33 years ago. And at the time, my eldest son was misdiagnosed at the age of 1 with epilepsy. And that began a journey which
A hellish journey, I should imagine.
A blessed journey mostly, a journey of learning, a journey of discovery.
But despair nonetheless.
There was, yeah, absolutely. There would be those elements especially. But very briefly, misdiagnosed at the age of 1, and what that caused was. And this is now with hindsight that I speak and leads me on to what we now do. My eldest son was misdiagnosed at the age of 1 with epilepsy, grand mal epilepsy, and he was put onto medication.
So misdiagnosed and mistreated as well, medically mistreated, because the wrong medication, obviously, medication for the supposed condition, which I should imagine did harm.
Untold damage, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the first thing that happened there was it resulted in constipation. And I'm speaking now with an element of wisdom, but this is purely hindsight. It started off with constipation, and for a period of 2 years, his stomach never worked the normal way like ours would. We had to intervene with things like suppositories, laxatives, enemas, and so forth to give him relief. And in that 2 years, it was crampy. So his whole development was retarded.
Let's fast forward.
Yes.
How many years did this go on for?
For 2 years, it went on for 2 years. At the age of 3, we then were blessed to come or meet with a specialist who showed us how to help relieve him manually, basically using a glove, which we then did for the next 12 years, extracting the stools. But now the amazing thing in all of this was that in the 2 years that he was constipated, what happened is that
was he growing normally at that time?
No, that his development was totally impaired. He was crampy, and a lot of things was going wrong at that time. But what the worst of it was that he lived on antibiotics, and this is the real culprit. This is the ultimate discovery that I've made personally in terms of how bad.
That happened to you 33 years ago, and it is only now that medical science has come to the realization that the oversubscription of antibiotics is causing absolutely mayhem in communities and populations all around the world.
And interestingly enough, the person where I learned this from was a Dr. Jensen. He was very vocal many years ago, more than 30 years ago. But we were, at that time also, we did not have access to the kind of information that we have these days. So it only took me up until recently. And that was bringing me to my second son. Just to mention, Julie, for the 12 years, we used to manually remove the stools from his rectum every second day, gave him complete relief, and guess what? He never needed an antibiotic in that, whereas in the first 2 years, he needed an antibiotic every 3 weeks. Sure. Gets off one course, and that is what caused the brain damage, ultimately. Second son, 6 years ago, meets up with a car accident with a broken arm, and goes into hospital to Bera, and 4 days later, he takes his place in Jannah, he earned his place. An amazing young boy. His story can take an entire program to speak about as well. But again, at that point in time, and it was only after that I was directed, or divinely I might add, to the work of Dr. Jensen. And because I needed to understand what went wrong. He grew up to become a normal, healthy young man because I got him off the drugs early in life based on the experience of the first son. And he was fine.
Were there problems with him as well? Did you say
initially he was also as a precautionary measure, they put him onto anti-epileptic drugs at the age of 1 as well.
And obviously, if you had known now
yes.
What you knew then, you would not have allowed that to have
Absolutely
happened.
not. And this is the work that I do currently. I speak to people, forums, and alhamdulillah, this has brought us to what Moringa does as well, because in its primary instance, see, there are basically two.
So you're talking about Dr. Jensen, and where does he tie in with you and Moringa?
All right. So my second son, 4 days later, he passed on in Beira, but just went in with a broken arm, and I needed to understand. I needed to come to terms. I accepted that he had earned his paradise at that particular age, but I needed to understand what went wrong. Did they give him the wrong medication or something? It took about 3 months thereafter, and then I learned exactly what happened. And see, what happened was that the second day, I got him booked into the hospital that evening, on a Tuesday evening. The Wednesday, they had put a urine catheter on for him. And the urine catheter, much to my disapproval, but at that time I was only afraid of either urine or a bladder infection. I wasn't aware of anything else, but my concern was that. And I fought for 3-4 days, but circumstances as they were at the time, I didn't have much say in the matter of insisting that the catheter gets removed. And so it went on. And by the 4th day, he passed on.
Bottom line, what was the cause of his death?
Okay, so the catheter kept him a prisoner to his bed. Cause of his death was constipation. His stomach never worked, and this was in Ramadan as well, right? But his stomach never worked for 4 days, and I learned this from Dr. Jensen, that and we have a total misunderstanding of what constipation really represents. But, for the sake of today's program, very briefly, constipation is the key cause. Understand this, that you may be as regular as clockwork, but if the length of the stool that comes out of your rectum is longer than that, you are constipated by the definition of Dr. Jensen. And that means that food is going to rot in your gut. The rotting food is going to attract bad bacteria. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed a masterpiece when He created the human body. That bacteria do have 2 exit points. One is a good healthy fart, and another one is a good sneeze, and they're in and out of your body, out of your system. But by and large, this doesn't happen as it should. So what happens is that bacteria leaves your gut, enters your body. It's in no man's land. And then again, being the masterpiece of the way the body is designed, what happens, the body releases a phlegm, I call it a Uber or a taxi, to take this bacteria out of your system. Your nose runs. When your nose runs, it's basically, it's not a disease, it's not a sickness, it's not a cold, it's called a cold or a flu, but it's a cleansing process. The body's cleaning itself out.
It's the same like diarrhea, for example.
Absolutely. But
all right, so bottom line, what you're saying is Dr. Jensen, is he a South African?
No, he's European.
So you read his work?
I read his work,
and
yes.
Obviously he talks about gut health.
Gut health.
It's not the first time we're hearing about gut health.
Right.
They say you've got a healthy gut, you're also protecting yourself possibly against all types of cancers. Alhamdulillah. Right. So whilst you were doing research on Dr. Jensen, how did you come across Moringa?
Okay.
The wonder plant.
The wonder plant. Okay. So at that point, my focus had changed because up until then, I was told that my son's brain was starved of oxygen. That's the eldest son. So I ventured into things like mild hyperbaric, various things, but I was always looking at the alternatives to drugs. So things like my knowledge on alternative herbs, plants, remedial type of herbs and plants was my focus for the 30 years. And then came the understanding of the gut, and the lights went on because then I understood what happened to my eldest son. It was the gut. And then I understood what happened to my second son. It was the gut again, because his stomach never worked for 4 days. By the 5th day, and just a bit of advice for our friends out there, when we pay attention to this, when you visit somebody in a hospital, particularly, check, is your gut working? But on a daily basis, you remember the days of castor oil, right? There was wisdom behind it. But that practice was abandoned. We were probably the last generation that were forced.
Of castor oil once a month.
Right. So in that, but that was with Dr. Jensen, and alhamdulillah, through that and a little bit more research, we came across, because I was looking for alternative foods, and this is how Moringa landed up, and being, nowadays with information technology being what it is, so I was able to come out 6 years ago. I learned about Moringa, and at that time, I was so excited about it and the benefits and what it does. I imported it from Zambia, from Kenya, and packaged it and started introducing it to friends and family. But it was tough. It was like a Bible salesman, to convince people about the benefits of Moringa. But alhamdulillah, right now, with social networking and, the media that's available and information technology age that we're in, more and more people are becoming aware of it, and Moringa is the fastest growing business or industry. It's a superfood. Right?
Inshallah. Okay, let's talk more about it right after the ad break.
Lovely.
Yunus Mita is my guest this morning. We're talking about Moringa, the superfood, or as he says, the antidote for GM foods. And we know that 99% of the foods in our pantry are all genetically modified. We're talking about a superfood called Moringa. Yunus Mita is the pioneer behind this superfood, and alhamdulillah, he's worked tirelessly for the past 6 years bringing the superfood to the market. What made you believe truly that this is the antidote to all of our ills?
Okay. Firstly, with all modesty, I'm not the pioneer of Moringa.
I mean, bring it to South Africa and bring it to our attention, so to speak.
Creating an awareness around
yes,
the
absolutely.
product. Absolutely. It's been around actually amazingly for over 60 years. And it's just been very, and I'm amazed at the fact that they've been able to hide it from us and how they managed to hide it away from millions of people. And yes, people are absolutely still skeptical about it and its benefits, its merits.
I
and so
was skeptical the first time I spoke to you.
But now that people are becoming aware of it, it's amazing. And this is what it is, Julie. Firstly, we understand that the root cause of all our ailments, of most of our ailments, illnesses, and our well-being is the food we eat, right? And we need to understand very quickly what is wrong with our food. And again, a general misunderstanding around genetically modified foods is that the moment you mention GM foods, the first thing people think about is, they have this image of chemicals being sprayed all over the crops and, the foods being processed. Yes, that is a problem, but that only represents 10% of the the problem that comes with genetically modification. Understanding that GM foods has served us well, has served the world extremely well. They serve the purpose. And there was a time after the Industrial Revolution when the demand for food was great, but farmers were competing against elements, like pests, what we call pests, or other life forms that were eating half the farmers' crops. So less was actually coming to our tables. And that wasn't a good thing, not for us, not for the farmer.
Not for the economy.
Not for the economy, for all. And this is when the process of genetic modification actually first began. So they started with the chemical sprays to keep them away. Never worked for too long a period of time because they're resilient. They come back with a vengeance, you know. So farmers got in, you know, with the help of scientists, what they did was in a laboratory, took apart the seed, and they very cleverly figured out, okay, this locust, why is it wiping out this entire farmer's crop? And they figured out there's a particular vitamin, mineral, or nutrient, or a few, that is attracting this locust to this particular maize plant. I'm just using maize as one of the examples, but it went across the board from tomatoes to carrots to you name it, right? But so they removed those nutrients, and they successfully kept away a large percentage of these pests.
Which means what you're telling me is that the GM foods do not have sufficient nutrients. Our food sources are terribly compromised, over-processed, and that's where moringa comes in.
Right.
So what have you learned with moringa? How should we be ingesting it? How much, you know, do we have to take it on a daily basis to reap the benefits? Tell us all about that.
So, answer the last question first. Yes, you've got to take it on a daily basis, or rather for as long as you eat food. What's wrong with our food? It's vitamin deficient. Besides the toxicity and the other cancer-causing issues that's related to food, but in its essence, it's vitamin deficient. So all those vitamins, minerals, nutrients that they have cleverly removed from our food is now in the leaf of the moringa tree.
Okay. What about if I take supplements over the counter?
Yes.
Will that not serve me well?
Not at all, because our metabolisms are such that anything synthetic, which a supplement is, it's not natural. Your body will absorb a very small percentage, sometimes as low as 2% of it. So it's not going to achieve what we think. And here, what we need to, in summary almost, is that understand that each of us have what is called a recommended dietary allowance, or nutritional recommended value. And this has been determined by the World Health Organization. It's published, it's out there, it's available for anybody to have a look. This is the amount of calcium, magnesium, potassium that each person needs. And the reality of it, and this is the gist of it, the very food that we eat will give us maybe 20% of that required value for the day. Now, what moringa does, it's not going to give you 100%, but by adding moringa to everything that you eat, including a pizza that you've bought, into your porridges. Now, moringa, and I think for the benefit of those people watching who still don't know what moringa is, I think we need to quickly tell them that moringa is a tree. It's called Moringa oleifera. It's a tree that grows in tropical climates and originated in South India. And we, as Indians per se, consume this in our diet, and we still do. It comes in by the ton loads, but we've been incorrectly consuming or getting, we were not getting the total value of this moringa tree. Drumsticks. Have you heard of drumsticks?
Yes.
Ektanihin.
That's right.
Normally we cook it in dals or curries, right? And then you suck the inside of it out, but we got it wrong. We missed the plot. It's still green when it's harvested. If we had to leave that onto the tree, and then it matures.
Is that from the moringa tree?
That's from the moringa tree.
I'm speeding you up because we don't have much time. All right, so that is actually moringa.
No, there's two parts to moringa. The one is the leaf of the tree, and the other is the seed of the tree.
Yeah.
The seed
that we get in that.
That we get into the drumsticks.
Right.
They do two different things for your body. The leaf, on the one hand, repairs our corrupt body. Right. Our corrupt food. Our food is absolutely corrupt. It's vitamin deficient. It's toxic. It's disease causing. So the leaf, simply sprinkling. That's one simple way the idea is to simply get that leaf, or that it's dried.
The nutrients from the leaf.
The leaf is dried into a powder, and that powder, you need to get as much of that into your body as possible.
The last time I spoke to you, I think you were promoting moringa in a capsule form.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
Still doing that.
why should people, now you've got a whole range of products here. You've also got something in this container, it's called Natural Immune Booster, and you told me off air that this is great for people who are trying to detoxify, very especially people who, alcoholics who are trying to kick the habit maybe, or people, drug addicts who are detoxing, etc. This is great. And everything else on the table, but this, I should imagine, is very concentrated.
That is now the objective behind the whole process is actually, this is the leaf that has been dried and crushed into a powder, and this is the leaf that has been presented in the form of tea leaves, which you simply brew and boil and enjoy as a drink, either hot or cold. Now, the objective is for you to get as close to your percentage NRV in terms of your dietary requirements for the day. We need to have, believe it or not, something like 20 teaspoons of this a day, which is difficult, impossible, and very, very difficult to do. So what you see on the table are just different applications, different ways of getting the moringa into your body. And as indicated, there are two things. One is the leaf of the tree, the other is the seed. The seed, on the other hand, now, and that is where the concentrate comes in. It's just our way of making you get a lot more of the moringa into your body, but it's also combined with 20 Ayurvedic herbs as well.
Okay, and then the capsule, what does that contain? Exactly the same?
Now, the only thing unique about our capsule is that it's got a thing called fulvic acid attached to it, but the objective behind it, it's just a simple way of getting the moringa into your body.
Okay. Where is this available? Any side effects to this? And what are pharmacists or pharmaceuticals telling you about all of these products?
Believe it or not, pharmacists are beginning to stock this, starting off with somebody like Dischem, but there's probably a new moringa company packaging, distributing. This is making its way into foodstuffs. Mechel, one of our most nutritious meals in this country, which is not even kind of shared or this should be out in shelves internationally as well. You and I don't even drink it
2 minutes
much,
to wrap up.
right?
So just very quickly, sorry to cut you short there. Where and how do we get hold of these products?
Okay, at the moment, like you said, there are certain pharmacies and chemists that are keeping the products, not all of them. There's some that are unique to us, but we are producing, like the moringa and fulvic capsules. We're the only ones kind of doing that at the moment.
How do we get in touch with you?
My telephone number? Or
just your website.
We've got a Facebook page called Green Heart Pharmacy, but pharmacy is spelled Farmacy. And we prescribe food. We don't prescribe drugs, right? So Green Heart Pharmacy. And then we also on Instagram as well.
Okay, just back to the detoxing.
Yes.
And you've pointed me to these capsules.
Yes.
Would you have to take this for life, or just for a certain prescribed period?
The question is that, do you have to eat food for life? For as long as you have to eat food, you need this moringa.
And if you took the capsule once a day, every day, and cut out all the other supplements, are you good to go?
No, because you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to get a little higher in terms of the nutritional requirements that you need for the day, but you're not going to get enough. So the idea is to get as much of this powder, and there are different applications. Like we've got a protein shake, there's an instant soup, there's a moringa concentrate, there's a tea, an energy drink. So these are all just different ways of getting as much of the moringa into your body. But here's the one thing which must be said about moringa, is that what it does is that it's going to save you a lot of money in the process. Your grocery bill, so do not think that, now I've got to find money to buy these products. No, it's actually, you're going to end up eating a quarter of what you currently eat and having 4 times the energy.
Okay, and that's where we have to leave it, unfortunately. Okay. People can visit your website page, follow you on Facebook, and get all the information they require.
Absolutely.
Jazakallah for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
And there you have it. The superfood called Moringa. Yunus Mita is South African-based, I think somewhere in Vereniging, and he's given us his details. You can, go to his page, or go to his Facebook page and get in touch with him, make contact with him, and get to find out more about this superfood and get yourself well and healthy in the process, inshallah. And welcome back. We're now going to be talking to an author. He tells me that he's onto his 5th book. His name is Zaid Ismail, and the book we're going to be talking about, and a whole host more time permitting, 21 Days to Live, Embracing Me and the Ecosystem. He is, as I've said, Zaid Ismail, and gives me great pleasure to have him in studio this morning. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum assalam, jazakallah for having me.
Now, you tell me that your background is in coaching. You've spent many, many years in the corporate world, and at some point in your life you've decided, enough, I need to get off this mad race that I'm running, or this mad train that I'm on. I need to do a bit of introspection, reflection, and start putting my thoughts onto paper. This, of course, is your 5th book.
That's actually my first book.
Your first
and
book?
And I'm on to my 5th one.
You're on to your 5th?
Yeah.
So why are you talking to us about your first book when there's been so many other books in the pipeline as well?
Because I think there's an important point of departure in this book that kind of set me on this course that I'm on now.
Oh.
Because since I left corporate, I'm focusing on mental health, life coaching, and writing about mental health
All right. Why are you
issues.
so fascinated with mental health, of all things?
At the risk of sounding arrogant, I'm fascinated with it because I believe we're getting it wrong, and I think the evidence points to the fact that we're getting it wrong. I mean, we've never had as much awareness, as many campaigns, and as many professionals, both formally and informally, in the mental health space, yet we have a spiraling issue with mental health.
Okay, so your first book, The Ego. Oh, it's the ego system,
Yes.
not the ecosystem. I beg your pardon.
Yes.
All right, we've got it wrong here on the call sheet, but be that as it may, the ecosystem, of course, the nafs. You are so
Yes.
right that I think we get so many things wrong because of the nafs or the ego. It's a synopsis of the human condition. What books come after these? Is it kind of also an almost natural follow-up?
So the reason why I wrote the book that followed on from this one was because as much as I got very positive feedback on this one, I seemed to attract very much the academic and professional reader with this book. And that wasn't my intention. My intention is to try and make this as accessible as possible. So the second book I wrote, which is more about owning your life, builds on the philosophy in this book, but it makes it more accessible to the layperson. So it discusses it with a lot less jargon, a lot less technicality. And I'm getting exceptionally good reviews for that, alhamdulillah, on the sales and that it's picking up as well. It's also available in bookstores. But the book that's following on from that...
What's that titled?
Well, the book that's following on from that one is the title that I'm releasing end of this month, which is intended for a much broader audience, and especially for an adaptation of that is going to be made available for the Muslim community. And that's called Embracing Me.
Okay.
And Embracing Me is all about understanding why we turned out to be who we are, rather than judging ourselves for not being good enough, or not fitting into someone else's expectations, or not fulfilling a specific stereotype or role that is expected of us.
What does that say about helicopter mothers in this day and age, giving too much too soon to our children, living through our children, being proud of their achievements, pushing them in a certain direction because we were not able to achieve what we had wanted to achieve when we were younger?
I think you actually summed it up quite well in that last statement, is that we try to compensate for what we think we were inadequate at. And we do this with the best of intentions. But like I say, there's no bad intentions, there are only poorly informed decisions. And the poorly informed decision in this case is that when we try to protect our children from the struggles or the hardships that we might have experienced, what we forget is that we are also protecting them from the wisdom that we acquired through it. And then when they faced with it outside of our control, because we can't control everything that they're going to experience in life, when they face it outside of our control and they have a meltdown, or they choose a bad way of dealing with it, we then wonder where we went wrong. And we went wrong because we prevented them from learning about it.
Tough for us as parents to let go,
It
is it not?
It is.
To allow them and know that they're going to be making many mistakes or falling down time and time again, and it's difficult to control yourself from not running to their aid, picking them up, dusting them off, and, you know, kissing them better, so to speak, and then allowing them to go on their way. I'm talking little ones right up to grown adults, because we see that happening all the time.
Completely. The one thing I like to tell my clients is that we're not raising children, we're raising adults. And when we start realizing that we're raising adults, we'll understand that we are grooming that innocent child to be able to be a functional and responsible adult, someone that contributes meaningfully to society, not someone that becomes a liability. So this whole idea we have about you must enjoy your childhood before you experience the responsibility of the world, we're actually putting them on the back foot when we let them go. And we can see it in the divorce rates. We can see it in the social ills that we're experiencing as a community. We can see it in so many different ways. And it's because we don't have, for lack of a better word, or better phrase, we don't have fully formed adults that leave the nest anymore. We have semi-formed adults. And at some point we need to realize that we didn't raise ourselves. So if we're getting it wrong, then that means something went wrong in the way we were raised.
Absolutely. Is all of that contained in your books?
That is unpacked in a very different way, because one of the problems we've got is that we define a problem and then we define a solution for the problem. And the problem with that is that we assume that the way that problem is experienced by everyone is the same. We assume that the reality that we experience and the support structure we have around that problem is the same. So when we go defining a solution for a problem, we assuming that someone else has exactly the same awareness, self-esteem, support structure, upbringing, value system, and all of those things, so that they can apply the solution to a problem that we see.
And we get very frustrated and angry if people don't see things our way.
Yes.
Because we expect the whole world to have our worldview.
Exactly. And we expect that because we're not self-aware. We don't stop to consider, and this is in fact something that came up recently in one of my discussions with someone, and I would challenge the viewers to consider this. We assume that if we are married to someone, that we share the same value system, and we assume that by virtue of the fact that we both may be Muslim, that value system is a common one, but it's not. And it's not because Islam provides us with a framework or with a point of reference that we adopt into our lives. Now, yes, if you're the perfect Muslim, then everything that Islam teaches us, we will adopt. But we're not perfect Muslims. So my value system, my personal value system, is informed by my Islamic beliefs, but also by what I've accepted for myself as part of my experience with life.
Well, I've said it often enough that we are selective Muslims, are we not?
Yes.
We take from Islam what suits us in our very particular or special or unique circumstances, and then we'll take from Islam what fits in at that point in time. And I think the majority of us do that, don't we?
But I agree we do that. My concern is that we don't often enough ask, why do we do that? The assumption is weak iman. And this is actually something that
and our big egos.
And our big egos, right? And both those things, I think, is critically misunderstood in our communities, and by a lot of our teachers as well in the community, the people that share wisdom and insights with us. Because, for starters, the moment we start linking things like mental health to poor iman, we're missing the plot completely. And we can maybe unpack that a little later. But the other problem is that we only selective about what we take from Islam because the environment in which we are will potentially undermine our significance as a role player, as a participant, if we try to be better than that. And this is why it's so important for choosing the right social circles and the right groups, and why also it's better to be alone than to be in bad company and all of those things, right? And that's the beauty of the Sunnah. And the more self-aware we are, which is what I focus on completely in everything I write about, it's always about self-awareness, about understanding why we take what we take from life and from experiences and from people. Because the more self-aware we are, the more we'll realize why it is that influence has a hold over us that causes us to choose something less from what we should be taking from Islam. So when we become selective about our belief system, it's because something else holds more importance. And there's something else, not because of weak iman. It's something else is because of a lack of self-awareness. And that's mindfulness. But not mindfulness about what's happening around us. Because that's what everyone talks about. Everyone talks about mindfulness.
Be in the moment.
Yes, be in the moment and situational mindfulness. They always refer to about environmental issues and what you take from someone else and what they're saying and why they're saying it. That's not the mindfulness we need to be focused on. We need to be focused on emotional mindfulness. Why am I in that emotional space when I'm in that moment? Not why is that moment having influence on me? Why am I in that emotional space when I have that moment? Because every single thing that we do is an accumulation, and this might sound philosophical, but we just need to think about this for a second. Everything that we do in every moment is informed by the collection of experiences of our life up until that point. And if what we presented with in front of us at that moment is something that rekindles joyful memories, memories of success, of accomplishment, of recognition, appreciation, we'll go into it with a positive attitude. But the moment, it's not a positive rekindling of memories. The moment, it's something that reminds us about when we may have been ridiculed, when we may have fallen short of expectation or were dismissed or rejected. The moment that happens, we immediately come into that moment in a defensive state. And when we come into the moment in the defensive state, what we're doing is we're looking for evidence that's going to confirm that we are at risk of again being ridiculed or mocked or rejected.
And let's go for our first ad break. Zaid Ismail is an author. He's written 5 books. He comes from the corporate world. He's also a life coach, and he's here to talk about his work. His particular focus is on mental health, and I should imagine the stigma around mental health. We'll be back with you in a minute or two. The final 12 minutes of the show this morning with Zaid Ismail, the author and life coach. 21 Days to Live, Embracing Me and the Ego System. Earlier on I said ecosystem, but it's the ego system. Zaid, coming back to you and the issue around coaching. My producer and I have this joke going on between us about everyone we meet. And that's great that people go into this line of work, because every second person is now becoming a coach or a super coach. In the process, of course, whether you engage with them or not for, becoming your coach and to support you through your crises in life, they have gone through a certain amount of learning themselves, awakening and awareness, self-awareness. So that's great in that respect. But are we not having too many coaches around us?
I think that the challenge we've got is that it's too easy to be certified as a life coach.
Ah, okay.
And as we know, it's an unregulated industry. But more importantly, I think we have a community or society that doesn't understand what they need to look for in whether or not a life coach is good. And in the absence of that, knowledge and that familiarity, what they look for is accreditation with a certified body. The problem with that is that it assumes that the person who acquired the certification has real life experience in being able to guide them out of or into whatever situation it is that they need guidance on. The biggest problem I've seen in the life coaching industry, and this is actually sad because, like I said earlier, there's no bad intentions, just poorly informed decisions, is that people tend to go through a difficult life, and there's no shortage of that, unfortunately. But when they emerge from that space, when they overcome their trial or their struggle, they automatically assume that they are in a position to be a life coach to guide someone else out of it. Now, yes, we must share our wisdom, we must share our learnings, we must share our insights that we picked up through life, and that's how we uplift each other. But it takes on a very different form when you present yourself as a life coach as opposed to a sincere advisor, as a companion. Because when you take on the approach as a life coach, you now you're attaching a level of authority to what you are saying that someone else is more likely to believe without critical thinking. And that's the problem, is that when someone engages with a life coach, more often than not, unless they are really defensive or have a number of other different things at play, more often than not, they trust blindly because they're going to someone willingly looking for assistance, for help and guidance. And I've seen more cases than I care to count of how poorly informed or poorly skilled life coaches have caused marriages to break up.
Oh.
Have caused bad marriages to happen because they advised people to get together when they were just not suitable for each other, who, without realizing it, guilt people into believing that they needed to do the right thing because their iman was compromised. And it's these kinds of things, and that's just a few examples, but there's no end to the number of examples that I can quote on this, in that just being well-intentioned to want to be able to guide people into a better space doesn't mean that you are capable as a life coach.
What does one look for then in a life coach?
If you're looking for a life coach, you need to, apart from establishing the rapport, and this is one of the problems, because one of the first things we do is we look to see, do we agree with this person? Do they resonate and that sort of thing? But if we're not careful, what we're going to be looking for is who recognizes our struggle and who's going to make us feel better about it.
Sorry, I have a frog in my throat, but be
Sure.
that as it may, let's go back to the book, the ego system,
Yes.
and the issues around mental health. What is it saying to the reader? How is it going to enlighten the reader? And by reading the book, will I be able to understand when I'm in a state of ego and when I'm in a state of overcoming my ego?
Brilliant
I'm sure it's
question.
not a self-help, but anyway, that's the
Brilliant
question.
brilliant question, and that actually talks directly to why I chose that name for the book, because one of the failings, and I honestly believe it's a failing of the mental health industry, is that they refer to our ego as something external to us, something that is evil that we need to subdue and that we need to control. We are our ego, and until we get this, we won't realize that we either have a healthy or an unhealthy ego. We either have a healthy sense of self or an unhealthy sense of self. And what determines whether it's healthy or unhealthy is how accurately it's informed. So when we talk about the ego system is effectively the cycle we go through in every single moment that informs our behavior and what we take from the responses we get. It's literally a 6-point process.
Can you run through it very quickly? And
Yes.
then my final question to you would be, people who are very selfish, who are very narcissistic, who grab with both hands, and we have all of those in our family, all of us know such people
Yes.
in our communities, are they people that allow their egos to take over?
No.
All right, why not? So what are those people?
Okay, so just to talk about the ego system. The ego system has 6 points, and I'll go very briefly through it. So the first one is that there is a need, a core need that we need to fulfill. That core need is what we were created with it. And at the essence of it, it's the need to be of consequence, to be significant in every setting that we find ourselves in. That need is then followed by what assumptions we make in our minds, subconsciously most often, about whether or not we are capable of fulfilling that need, or whether the current circumstance is going to fulfill that need. If we're confident about it because of the assumptions we make is that it looks positive, we'll be less fear and more confidence. If we fear that it's not going to be fulfilled, the fear goes up and the confidence goes down, which is the third point of the cycle, which is fear that we respond to. The fear then informs our behavior because then we decide to act and take whatever steps are necessary to fulfill that need. Once we've taken the steps necessary, it's only then that everyone else understands what we're trying to achieve, because they weren't privy to that whole cycle that went in our subconscious about what we want to do or what we want to achieve. And when we act, we see their responses, which is the fifth point, the responses to our actions. And based on their responses to our actions, we inform our perception about whether or not they appreciate us, they accepted us, respected us, or whether our behavior was effective in achieving that need. If we have a higher level of self-awareness, we'll focus on the effectiveness of our behavior to achieve that need. Whereas if we have a lower sense of self, what we'll do is we'll look at others and we'll assume they're judging us. And we'll judge them in return.
Okay.
So that's the ego system. Now, if we take that and apply it to a very hot topic right now, which is narcissism. One of the things I mentioned, I think it was offline, is that the moment we attach a label to someone's behavior, we stop seeing the human and we start seeing the label. And this is true for narcissists as well.
And that creates a lot of problems in relationships, does it not?
Yes.
Because you're building up both sides without even being aware of it. Okay, so you are the victim of this narcissistic personality, and you're building up all of this resentment. That relationship can never be healthy, because every minute of your day, it may be your spouse, it may be your sister, it may be your brother, it might be your, it might be your child, and you're consumed, absolutely consumed by this person's behavior and what the next interaction with this person's going to be like.
Yes, and I know we don't have a lot of time to go because this is a massive topic, right? But the important thing to remember in these situations is that when we assign a label to someone's behavior, we are in fact labeling our experience of their behavior. And that's a critical differentiator, because if we're labeling our experience of their behavior, it doesn't mean that that was the intention behind their behavior.
Okay. So we reacting every time that person is in our space, or we're very defensive.
We're
very defensive, and that too is possibly triggering something in that person, because they pick up on all of those vibes.
We enable the cycle. We actually feed the cycle by labeling it. Because if you're going to call me a narcissist, I'm going to prove to you that you're either wrong, which is going to be narcissistic of me in the first place, or I'm going to prove you right, which is going to be a passive-aggressive way of doing it, right?
Just to avoid all-out confrontation.
Okay, so you believe that about me, so I'll be that way.
Yeah.
What it means is that both the person that's judging and the person that's being judged are both defeating themselves and the relationship.
We've got 2 minutes to wrap up time, and not enough time to have covered this very interesting subject. But what I'm also hearing you saying is that we all of our relationships, you and I, my people back home, the people that I interact with here at work, we're all in this, we're all playing this game.
Yes.
There's this game that we're playing. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? How much are you going to get out of it? How much am I going to get out of it?
Yeah.
And there's this constant dance that's happening around all of us, all of our relationships. How do we get above that? How do we not get caught in this trap? How do we not get caught in this preconceived idea and responses that's going to happen when I meet you next? Because I've already got it in my mind that we're going to have a confrontation.
Right.
Or you're not going to respond to me the way I expect you to respond.
And you end up preloading your expectations for a certain outcome, and you actually feed that outcome. We create self-fulfilled prophecies, right? The one thing that has always helped me to maintain my sanity in every one of the very colorful experiences I might have had over my lifetime has been that I needed to remind myself that you cannot give what you don't have. So I cannot give someone else respect if I lack self-respect. I cannot give someone else appreciation if I don't appreciate who I am.
Can you give too much love and then get taken advantage of?
No, you can't, because if you give too much love and you get taken advantage of, getting taken advantage of questions what is your expectation out of that giving of love. When it becomes transactional, when you're giving it with the expectation of receiving something in return, then when that is not given, you feel abused, you feel betrayed, you feel let down, disappointed, and all of those things.
So you must give selflessly.
Yes, but selflessly is also a myth on its own, right? Because up until a point, there's always some selfish investment in that, right? But let that selfish investment be that you want to be the best of who you can be.
Okay.
Don't let it be that you want to be seen to be the best of who people have experienced. And that's the problem, is that we so often do something because we want to see how others are going to receive it, rather than what is our purpose behind doing it.
So much more to uncover. We have to have you back in studio
Inshallah.
to unpack the ego and the ecosystem and your books. Where can people buy your books?
This book is available on my website, zaidismail.com. And some of my other books are available in bookstores, but I'll be posting more information about availability soon.
Great. So
especially
people
after
just need
the
to
next
go
one is released, yes.
To your website. You have a Facebook page, I presume.
I'm on Facebook, on Instagram as well, and on Twitter. Twitter, I'm not so active on it, but the rest of them, yes, they can definitely engage with me and tell me what they think.
Lovely to talk to you. Inshallah, have you back in again
Ameen.
to pick your mind. And, oh gosh, so many unanswered questions, but we will revisit all of this and more. Shukran for being
Inshallah.
with us on the show.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair.
And that's where we leave it. Wonderful show, wonderful guests. Could sit here talking to them for hours on end, but obviously time doesn't permit that. Thank you for being with me. I thoroughly enjoyed your company. Take care on the road. Till the next time, as always, it's Khudafiz from me, Julie Alli.